Welcome everybody. So I got back from seeing the Meg. Now the Meg is based off the book series by Steve Alton, who also created the book series The Loch, which is about a Loch Ness monster that kind of terrorizes a small little town in Scotland. And this movie is kind of similar to that, where you kind of have a giant shark called a megalodon that terrorizes a group of researchers in the Pacific Ocean, I think is what it is. And then they end up opening up this fissure, which could release 20 sharks, if not more. Eventually, Megalodon comes after them and starts wreaking havoc along the research station. Now, you've seen this plot in things like Deep Blue Sea and Jaws before. This movie definitely does borrow a lot of things from those films, but it's doing so in sort of an homage type of motion. If you really like shark movies, if you really like the sharks going after humans and killing them and stuff and being highly intelligent like the shark is in this film, you're going to like this movie. So Jason Statham is called back in action when a submarine goes down in sort of the cavern that they're exploring. It's kind of like the deepest part of the ocean that they haven't kind of fully explored, because most of the ocean isn't really explored yet. And they awaken something called the Megalodon, which is a gigantic, huge shark. Like, if you've seen the trailers, you know this shark is massive, and this thing wreaks havoc upon the research vessel. It wreaks havoc upon Jason Statham's vessel, and they eventually lose one of the main characters in the film. Not going to explain how, because I want you to go see this movie for yourselves. I wasn't really expecting much when I went to go see this movie at first, but I actually learned to kind of like this movie. This movie has a couple good one-liners, but some of the jokes that are in this movie kind of fall flat, which kind of sucks. But either way, I kind of had a good time. I didn't expect to like this movie as much as I did, and I wouldn't go in this movie, expecting an Oscar-worthy performance from any of the characters. But all these characters do seem to have like a good time. The actors in them do seem to have a good time when they're creating this film, and I really do commend them. I think Jason Statham is pretty much having the time of his life while filming this film. This is something that only comes out like every so often, and it's good cheesy fun. It's kind of like the cheesy fun that is similar in vein to something like Rampage that came out, which is also kind of got the similar plot to this movie. And so if you've seen that movie, you kind of know what to expect. And while you're expecting Jason Statham to do some kung fu action and stuff and fight this shark using his bare fists or like kickboxing and stuff, he doesn't do that in this film. There's a cool money shot moment that happens towards the end of the movie, but I'm not going to spoil it for you. It is kind of similar to things that you've seen in video games, where you activate a trigger button and the main character kind of crawls up on the creature or something, jabs like a spear or something in the back, and kind of controls it that way. It's something similar to that, and I thought it was a pretty sweet way to end the movie. Like, you kind of expected to kind of go the way of Jaws, where you like ram like an air canister into the shark's mouth and then shoot it, but that didn't happen in this movie. It does borrow a lot of thematic elements of not showing the shark as much, even though you do get to see the Megalodon a lot in this film. And even if it's for a brief second, you still get to see the massiveness that is this shark. And I think if Spielberg were to make, the Meg today, he would probably use the similar techniques that they're using for this movie. They wouldn't have it use the mechanical shark like they did on Jaws. They'd use something CG like this just because it's easy to do. And I think the marketing for this movie did a fantastic job. I think they kind of conveyed that this was a movie that kind of knew what it was, took itself not as seriously as something like this could have. And I think this movie would have benefited from like an R rating, whereas they filmed it in a PG-13 setting, so you can't have that much gore. You can't have that much nudity or violence or sex and stuff, which Jaws definitely did have. It didn't have a lot of that, but it still had a lot of gore. It still had a lot of blood and violence and stuff. But this movie still makes up for that by having a lot of cool action sequences. There's a scene that takes place on a research boat where all the characters get knocked off and everything one by one. You kind of see everybody kind of have like cool ways of getting knocked off the ship, and then they all have to get up on rafts and stuff in order to escape the shark. And then Rainn Wilson, who's the guy that plays Dwight in The Office, he calls in like a helicopter and he shoots the shark with a machine gun and stuff just to kind of jar it away from them. There's really cool sequences like that throughout this movie. There's a sequence towards the end of the movie where you kind of have Jason Statham. He kind of comes against a crossroads where he has to choose between saving the people that he likes, which is his team, or saving himself. And so he chooses to try and ram this ship, this like underwater submersible, into the shark and cut it, which he does because he's trying to kill the thing, but it doesn't successfully kill the shark, so he has to find another way to do so. And I'm not going to spoil that part of the film for you, because I want you guys, like I said before, to experience this for yourself, to go out in the theaters and see this movie, because while this movie isn't going to be like something that wins an Oscar or an Academy Award or anything like that, this movie is definitely some good fun popcorn flick movie that you can just go to one day when you're bored and, munch on popcorn and drink a soda or something, watch a good movie. But there is some negative things about this movie. One, there isn't like gore, blood, or violence or anything like that. It's sort of like as much as a shark movie like this probably should have. You don't see a lot of like limbs being torn off or like arms and stuff and like blood kind of rushing towards the sea, which would have been kind of cool to see in a Megalodon movie kind of like this, because I know the book is a lot more bloodier and violent and gory like the movie should be. Since it's a PG-13 movie, they kind of had to dial it down a little bit so that a modern audience could watch it and sit down in the theater and kind of take it. And I'm a little bit disappointed in that, but in that it was a pretty decent experience. There's also one person in this movie, and I'm going to mention her. Her name is Ruby Rose, and I don't know how she keeps getting all these awesome roles. Like, she gets Triple X, which wasn't really that great of a movie. She gets all these like roles where her agent seems to be getting her mixed in with some really good stars such as Vin Diesel and Keanu Reeves and John Wick, which John Wick 2 is a really good movie, so I highly recommend you guys see it. But she's the only weak link in this movie now. She's really cool to look at and everything. Like, she's super like attractive, but I mean, she can't act. Whenever I see that she's cast in a movie, I immediately think, oh great, this is gonna suck, just because Ruby Rose is in it. It's probably not gonna be any good. This is an exception to that rule, and this movie was actually pretty decent. So yeah, I'd have to give this movie about a C or a C plus. This movie definitely does try. It's not something that is going to blow your socks off it or anything. You're probably going to be able to predict some of the moments that happen within this film, but even with that being the case, I still had a really good time. The visual effects are pretty great. The effects for the shark were awesome. Seeing Jason Statham fight a shark is just awesome to see in theaters. I had a really good time watching this, so I highly recommend that if you have nothing better to do, to definitely check out the Meg. Even buy the book if you can find that still, or the book series and stuff. With that being said, I hope you guys liked this video. As always, guys, rate, comment, subscribe. I'll see you in the next video. Peace.